Hello, history scholars. A few opening questions for today. Number one, can you finish John Paul Jones' famous quote? Remember, we learned about him in the last lesson, right? Commander of the Bonhomme Richard, as it was sinking, burning, the British telling them to surrender. John Paul Jones said, "I have not yet, And then he and his crew overtook the British ship, the Serapis. Do you remember his famous quote? I hope you said, "I have not yet begun to fight." Number two, what was one way women helped during the Revolution? Now, scholars, there are a lot of different things you could have said for that question, right? They nursed or cared for the wounded soldiers. They cooked for the camps. They stayed at home and tended to the family's farm, the family business. Maybe you thought of specific ways, right? Such as Mary Ludwig Hayes, known as Molly Pitcher, right? Where the story is that when her husband's cannon crew was all killed in battle, she stepped in and loaded and fired the cannon until replacement soldiers could get there, right? Keeping the enemy at bay. Or maybe you thought of Deborah Sampson, who disguised herself as a man so she could join the Continental Army and help with the actual fighting. Maybe you remember they served as spies, right? Lots of possible answers. Women were definitely a key part of helping the revolution and its success. Number three, who is famous for riding from Boston to Lexington calling out, "The Redcoats are coming, the Redcoats are coming"? Perhaps you said Billy Dawes, right? He did this as well. But the person most famous for this ride, Paul Revere. Remember, neither Paul Revere nor Billy Dawes made it from Lexington to Concord. They did both make it to Lexington, warning that the Redcoats were coming, but they were captured in Lexington. And it was Dr. Samuel Prescott who continued the ride from Lexington to Concord, warning that the Redcoats are coming. And number four is really reaching back with some vocabulary. A person selected to represent other people is called a blank. So think about as the Continental Congress was meeting the first time, the second time, right? People were selected to represent the rest of the people in the colony. Do you remember what that person is called? Yes, that person is called a delegate. All right, scholars, today, lesson 20, our last major battle of the American Revolution. Our story today about that last battle begins with a British general named Charles Cornwallis. Now, General Charles Cornwallis chose Yorktown, Virginia, right along the York River as the base for his camp. Now, if you take a look at this map, you can spot, I think you can see my little arrow, right? Here's Yorktown. Right, so here is where he established his camp. He picked this spot for two main reasons. One, with the river right there, the York River, it would make it very easy for the British Navy to bring more food, more troops, right? That river, the York River, connects right to the Atlantic Ocean, making it very easy to get more food and troops if needed. The second reason, he thought he could stop the rebels, right? The Americans, if he defeated the army that was in Virginia. right? Scholars have studied, right, and learned about all this fighting going on in the New England colonies. Then we heard now about fighting going on in the South, and this idea was that they would squeeze from the north to the south, right? Kind of capturing everything in the north, capturing everything in the south, and then squeeze into the middle, which ties in well to that Virginia area, right? So they've captured Philadelphia. They had captured New York City, right? They had control of much of the South. So General Cornwallis is thinking, aha, we defeat the army stationed in Virginia and end this ridiculous war, right? Show the Continental Army that they cannot do this, right? Putting the Patriots in their place. So his plan, right? His thought is stationing himself in Yorktown, Virginia, making it right possible for he and his army to defeat the Americans. Well, this proves to not be a good spot. Take a look at this map. Again, if you're following my arrow, right, here's Yorktown, right? British soldiers in Yorktown, right? The river's right here, connects to the Atlantic Ocean, making it easy to get more troops, more food, more supplies, whatever is needed to battle. Well, we have talked about this before, scholars. Having your back to the river, right, might in this case mean more food, more supplies, more troops. But we have talked about how this can be a bad decision because if you need to retreat, you have nowhere in which to retreat. Right? Yes, you could cross the river, but that takes a lot of time when you have supplies, right, ammunition, weapons, many soldiers to get across. But he's not thinking like that because the river's right there, close to the Atlantic Ocean. The Navy can help him, right? The British Navy is the strongest Navy in the world. Well, this does end up, as we probably all suspected, being a very bad decision for Cornwallis. He has nowhere to retreat. He doesn't think he's going to need to retreat, so he's not worried about it. But remember how the French is secretly helping? Well, the French Navy gets involved. You probably spotted that already right here, right? French Navy. These ships come in. Let me tell you about them. So here's another map, just to give you another view, another look at that idea. So George Washington gets word that General Cornwallis has stationed himself in Yorktown, and he sees an opportunity. He orders the American and French fleets to trap Cornwallis. So those French fleets head to the York River. I'm just noticing here, scholars, it says James River, but I believe it's the York River. I'll have to further check that. But the French fleets, right, here they are, French Navy, blocking here, stopping the British Navy. Right, so French fleets blocking that river make the British troops and supplies, any more of them, not able to get there. So this idea that Cornwallis had, right, of getting more support if needed, now cannot happen. The British Navy can't get to him because of this French Navy blockade. Now, Cornwallis wasn't expecting that to happen, right? He didn't expect that the French would be helping in such a way. But now he turns to the river, he looks for help. There is no help coming. Then the American and French troops on land surround Yorktown and they close in around Cornwallis. So scholars, again, if you take a look at this map, right? American forces. Do you remember me telling you about Lafayette and von Steuben, who both stepped in to help, right, in the spring of that winter in Valley Forge? Well, here they are again, leading some troops and stepping in to help also from France, right? Saint Simon and Rochambeau, two French leaders, those French troops. So here they are, right? They build or dig, sorry, not build, they dig trenches out here around Yorktown. They've surrounded it. They're going to close in. On October 9th of 1781, the first cannon was fired in what is the Battle of Yorktown. For the first time in this entire battle of the, or war of the American Revolution, for the first battle ever, Washington has more soldiers, more guns, more cannons. It is the first time that George Washington has the advantage, thanks to, right, their French allies. So, the first cannon is fired. The battle continues. Scholars, every day, the French and American troops move a little closer, make their trenches, continue to fight. They move a little closer, make their trenches. They're closing in, getting closer and closer. Remember, there's now no way for Cornwallis to retreat, right? His back is to the river that's being guarded by the French Navy now. No help is coming. He can't get more soldiers. He can't get more ammunition. No more supplies. And the fighting continues. Then, on the 17th of October, after 8 days of fighting, with the American and French soldiers moving closer and closer each day, no help coming from Cornwallis, he surrenders. This, scholars, that surrender is the last major battle of the American Revolution. The last major fight of the American Revolution. There are some small battles, but this is the last main battle, the last significant, big, well-known battle of the Revolution. When Cornwallis surrenders, the next 2 days are very important. During those 2 days of the surrender, the American and French armies form two long lines. The defeated British troops are going to march between them in those lines as they leave Yorktown. This painting is the beginning of that long march. The French on one side, the Americans on the other, and a line of surrendered British soldiers in the middle. They march away from Yorktown, and as they did that, the British Army played a tune, a song that they all knew very well. It was a tune to a nursery rhyme popular in Great Britain. It seems like a strange time for them to be playing a nursery rhyme song, but listen to the words, and this is why they chose it. Listen. If buttercups buzzed after the bee, if boats were on land and churches on sea, if ponies rode men, and if grass ate the corn, and cats should be chased into holes by the mouse, if the mama sold babies for half a crown, if summer were spring and the other way around, then all the world would turn upside down. Scholars, that last line is what's so important, right? Then all the world would be upside down. That's what the British were feeling like here as they were surrendering, knowing this was the end of the revolution, that the American side had won. They had gained their independence. Remember, that had never happened before. So they're saying, oh my gosh, this is so strange. This is so odd. Odd like flowers going after bees instead of bees going after flowers. Mice chasing cats instead of cats chasing mice. Right? Horses riding men instead of men riding horses, right? Think of how funny all those things sound. They're saying as they sing this song, this seems so funny that this group of what had started out as volunteer soldiers, right? A militia, a bunch of volunteers, a bunch of farmers and townspeople, simple folks that defeated the greatest army in the world, the greatest navy, the most powerful country, a group of colonies succeeding in breaking away from their mother country for the first time ever. Wow. That is amazing. That, to the British, is the world turned upside down. Then scholars, a short time later, after a couple more little battles, the British and the Americans, now thought of as free and independent states, the United States of America, meet in France, in Paris, and they sign the Treaty of Paris. The Treaty of Paris, a peace treaty, officially ending the war in 1783. That peace treaty, signed by Benjamin Franklin for one, had Britain recognized that the colonies were now free and independent states, their own country, officially broken away from the mother country of Great Britain. The United States of America is now its own country at the signing of that peace treaty, the Treaty of Paris. All right, scholars, that brings you to the end of this study and the end of today's lesson. Your task now is to open the Google form, answer those 5 questions about today's lesson. Remember, click submit at the bottom of that Google form. Make sure that you send your answers to your teacher. Remember, don't just click turn it in because then the answers don't get sent. You must click that submit button at the bottom of the form. Scholars, our next lesson tomorrow is a little review as we get ready for the test. Please be sure to watch that review video so you have a chance to hear about and study some of the key items that will be on the test about the American Revolution. Thanks for listening again today. I look forward to you reviewing with me in the next lesson.